This isn't about making money. It's not about client numbers. It's nothing to do with that. It's about changing people's lives. And a lot of people get into coaching and they lose sight of why they actually started in the first place. And my whole mission with the Coach Creator now is to realign people and make them feel fulfilled in what they do. But sometimes you actually have to look inwards and look at yourself and say, do you know what? Am I actually doing everything I possibly could for my clients to deliver the level of value so they can change their lives? And that's what this is about. It's about teaching people to truly bring value to the market in every possible way. Not just through the physique, but through the mentality too. I love to talk about identity transformations, the process where you can become someone entirely new and completely shift your belief system. And one of my proof stories of this is Karl. An unbelievable transformation over the last 18 months since we worked together. And I'm gonna go at a different angle at this because sometimes identity transformation is nothing to do with becoming someone new. It is realigning yourself to the person that you have been in the past, because a lot of people will go through situations in their life where they lose themselves a little bit, where a situation occurs and they lose self-belief within themselves and they let the belief systems be dictated essentially by other people or in the environment. And the transformation we've undertaken with Karl is just unbelievable. Not just the fact that we then went on to win the PCA Midlands, the Masters class in bodybuilding, placed top 5 in the British finals. That's an unbelievable achievement, but that's just the cherry on the top of the cake for me. The real shift has been in his belief systems, his emotional control, and that's what I want to run you through today. And I want to read a few lines from this book. I don't say this to, go, oh, Joe, you're great at what you do, look at me. This is just to give you an insight in terms of, if you're a coach, how much you can change people's lives from the process that you go through when you actually start to focus, not just on fitness and nutrition, giving someone a training and diet plan, because this doesn't happen when you just do that. But on a serious note, mate, you are a massive inspiration to me. All I've done from day one is admire everything you have done and everything you've told me to do. And the result, I've now sold my gym and you've inspired me to coach and do what I've always wanted to do, but I never had the confidence to do it. I felt like a kid today meeting his superhero. One day you'll have the whole fitness industry looking up to you. And I'm just proud to say that I'm one of the first to stand on this journey with you. Nothing but love and respect, mate. You have a very big future ahead of you. Much love, Karl. And it was honestly so nice to listen to that, because it just means the genuine world. This isn't about money, it's about changing people's genuine lives. And when you say change lives, it's not just the impact that you have on that individual. Like Karl is a dad, he's a husband, he's a gym owner, he's a businessman. When you change one person's life, the domino effect and the ripple effect that has on every other individual that surrounds them, is unbelievable. And that's what I've seen in him. Every single voice note over the course of this process that he sends me, because he does every week on check-in, his voice just sounds a little bit more positive, he's a little bit more upbeat. And ever since he's competed, obviously he was a little bit grumpy at the end of the prep, but ever since he's competed, he's just gone from strength to strength. And when I met him, he was just genuinely the happiest man in the room, just bouncing off the walls. And I just know that if I would have met him 18 months ago, he would not have been that. He was a shadow of his former self. And it truly is so unbelievable. And if I kind of break this down, there's so many things, it's so hard to articulate in a 10-minute video of all the things that we've done and the mindset talks that we've had over the course of check-ins, because the check-ins were never really about, just his physique. He was a bodybuilder already. I actually, funny enough, competed with him in 2021 and I beat him, but we competed again in 2021. He's obviously a lot older than me. And we kind of went through this process because he knew training and nutrition. He owns a gym, he's a PT. He's very accomplished in terms of his actual training and nutrition. The only aspect he really needed help with was his mindset and reinstilling that and building that confidence. And one of the biggest frameworks that I applied to Karl, not that he probably actually knows it, is around about emotional regulation and stress resilience. And it's something I speak about a lot. So the framework that I like to use is Alex Hormozi Inspired. And it's a 4-step framework that I applied to Karl and so many of my clients. And I didn't really have it as a framework back then, but it's just the thing that I naturally did. And Alex has been able to articulate it so well. And I want to share this because I know that other coaches listening to this can apply it to their clients too, because it is honestly so powerful. So when we look at emotional regulation, I believe emotional regulation or stress resilience, whatever you want to call it, is your ability to regulate emotions. So you're no longer controlled by one, your environment, or secondly, people around you. So we break this down into 4 component parts. It'll make it really easy for you to understand and also know where your strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to this, because it's not just a one size fits all, it's a 4-stage sequential process. So stage 1 is what we call the fuse. So when something happens to you and you trigger, then you kind of feel like a little bit anxious within yourself, and someone says something, or you get a bill, or I don't know, something happens. You basically are triggered. You're thrown out of an emotional baseline into a high stress response. And Karl used to be that, very, very short fuse. Something had happened and he'd be really triggered. And we know that no good decision making comes from that lens. We need to be in a logical based frame of mind, clear thinking and non-emotional. So that was the first thing. Like, it's about developing a long fuse. The second part of obviously emotional regulation is when something does happen and you are triggered, because we're all human, we're going to be triggered. How much does your behavior change? That's the key, because we know the behaviors and the habits we should do. We know the things we should do on a daily basis in order to hit our goals and be the person we know we can be. We all know that. We're not stupid. But when something happens to us, it changes our behavior. So the second stage is, how much does your behavior change when something actually happens to you and you do become triggered? So that would be the second stage of the process. Stage 3 would then become, how long does it take you to go from that triggered state, so where your behavior's been thrown away, back to an emotional baseline. So that's kind of like your recoil effect of coming back to a stable environment. And with Karl at the time, if something happened to him and he was triggered, his behavior would change a lot. And secondly, it would take him a long time to get back to that baseline. So like one event might him throw off for days or even weeks. And that's the same with so many people, where if you have good emotional regulation, you can snap yourself back out of it and get yourself back to a good emotional baseline very, very quickly. And then the 4th stage of it is, when something bad happens to you, you need to ask yourself the question, am I going to use that as evidence to become stronger and better in the future? Or alternatively, am I going to use that to beat myself with a stick? And essentially that becomes a trauma response. You basically lose self-belief because of something that has happened to you. So if we kind of tie this framework together, we could say if you were the strongest mental person, you had ultimate emotional regulation, ultimate stress resilience, you'd have a really, really long fuse where it takes loads and loads and loads of things before you even get remotely triggered. But only when you do get triggered, because we're all human and we will get triggered at some point, your behavior hardly even changes. You stay straight on the path that you need to be. And in Karl's case, that's being a great dad, great businessman, obviously being a gym owner, staying on track with his bodybuilding goals. So that was his behavior change. His behavior no longer changed that much because he was in such a good state of mind and had built so much self-belief. Thirdly is, when it did happen, because there are instances that it does, he sprung straight back into a baseline state of emotion where he could start thinking out of logic. So instead of spending days in this emotional state, you can literally bounce back within the space of minutes or even hours. So that's the real flex. And then instead of us going, do you know what, that's a trauma response, every time something bad happens in our life, we're going to be the victim, we're going to play the victim card, and we're going to become a worse version of ourselves as a result of it, we go, do you know what, that's just a lesson. And we all want these traits in life of being hardworking, resilient, patient, all of that. And it's like, you can only develop those traits when you go through difficult and challenging times. That's how you get to that state of mind. So it's like, all of a sudden we then have a framework where it's like, that's what creates a strong person. That is what it's about. It's about having a long fuse and really good impulse control. It's about making sure that when our behavior does change, it doesn't change a lot because we're in a very, very good state of mind and a good self-belief system. We've got good habits and behaviors. Thirdly, we are going to get triggered, but we're going to get straight back out of it as fast as we can because we've got self-development practices that allow us to do so. And finally, every time something bad happens to us, we realize that life's not that deep. It happens to the best of us, and we're just going to use it to get stronger the next time. And if you continue to practice that and you build self-discipline and resilience, that's how you get stronger. Because I think a lot of people hear the word, oh, you've got to be resilient to stress, you've got a good emotional regulation, but it doesn't really mean anything practical. Whereas if you can practice those 4 individual steps, and most importantly, you can do it with clients, that's how you build a consistent client who builds self-belief. Because we all say, oh, it's calories in, calories out, but it doesn't matter at all unless a client can stick to a plan and be consistent. Like, think of it as a pyramid. The bottom tier of a pyramid isn't calories in, calories out. It's not supplements, it's not drugs, it's not training. It's, can you be consistent over an extended period of time? And that is only dictated by how someone's headspace is and where the mindset is at. Nothing to do with the actual physical metrics themselves. So that's why I think it's so important. And if you can do that for someone over an extended period of time, you can get the result like Karl has got. He's accomplished unbelievable things that he never would have thought possible in bodybuilding. He didn't even think he'd be able to step on stage again, and then he ended up placing top 5 in the UK. He's then sold his gym and pursued something that he's always wanted to do. He's been a better dad, a better husband. Like, his whole life has improved just because he worked on the most important thing in his life, and that's his headspace and his overall self-belief. But it all starts with one single step. And this is what I want to tell people. Like, if you're a coach, you can inspire people to go on that transformation, because let me tell you, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, more rewarding than seeing people go through that transformation and looking back in a couple of years and going, wow, like, that has just completely changed someone's life. Money cannot buy that, and I truly, truly do believe it. So I hope that is a kind of story and a little bit of a lesson and something you can take away that's tangible to actually apply into your business moving forward, because this isn't about making money. It's not about client numbers. It's nothing to do with that. It's about changing people's lives. And a lot of people get into coaching and they lose sight of why they actually started in the first place. And my whole mission with the Coach Creator now is to realign people and make them feel fulfilled in what they do. But sometimes you actually have to look inwards and look at yourself and say, do you know what? Am I actually doing everything I possibly could for my clients to deliver the level of value so they can change their lives? And often we're not doing that. We're doing check-ins, we're doing training, nutrition, and then people aren't consistent. People fall off. We feel undervalued. And it's like, is there any wonder? Because you're not doing the things to maximize the value for that person to truly change their life. And that's what this is about. It's about teaching people to truly bring value to the market in every possible way, not just through the physique, but through the mentality too.